And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast this week, of course, to cover the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Now, frequently in the last couple of weeks, we have been covering the Tampa Bay Rowdies after a draw. But, Carlos, you and I tonight are here to talk about not only a win, but a very emphatic win. So with that start, how are you doing?
I'm doing much better this weekend. Was down back home, the lovely city of Tampa, Florida. Traversed the beautiful bridge on the way over to another lovely city, known as St. Petersburg, Florida. Saw a nice game that included your Tampa Bay Rowdies against the startup Rhode Island FC. And I'll tell you what, I had a lot more fun in the second half than in the first half. So I'm feeling good. Back in DC now. It's much colder up here. It's been raining all day. It's terrible. It's the worst. But my birthday's this weekend, so it's a big week. We got big plans coming up. We have another game coming up soon that I'm looking forward to talking about. Yeah, not a bad day overall. James, what's going on in your life?
Well, supposedly it will be a little cooler as well this weekend for us, which I'm not complaining about because the difference in the usual weather obviously is not quite the same for DC. So as much as it might be a little bit more difficult for you, I would take the slightly lowered temperatures that we're going to get because we're at the very bottom of the possible stretch of this storm or any other storm that you're going to get. So I apologize, but I'm going to appreciate the very long bottom part of this storm and soak it in this weekend. Sure.
That's fair. It's just annoying. It's April. It's supposed to be warm over here. Like we had the cherry blossoms and everything. It's like, oh, like spring is here. It's still cold, man. I'm excited for it to be actually spring up here. And it gets nice. I'll tell you what, DC does get nice in the spring.
Yes, I do think that I've been there with my family around then. I forget the last time, like the last period of time that I was up there. But either way, we are taking a little bit of a digression here because, Carlos, we need to get back to a usual subject that we cover, which is the Tampa Bay Rowdies. As we said, this past weekend, the Rowdies played Rhode Island at home and won 4-1. Very good win. Really brought out all the stops in the second half, but we need to get through all of that because it was a bumpy road to get there. Now, in our RBLR Cup standings, everyone but me got a point. So great job, everyone but me. Go. Yeah, that puts the guest spot on 2 points. Carlos and our producer Eureka each have 1, and I will be floating around somewhere down in purgatory, I guess. This also followed the news that we had signed Eddie Manjoma from Phoenix Rising. So that was really positive. He made his debut this past weekend as well. And after going over all of the stuff that went into the game against Rhode Island, we also need to do a preview for another game this weekend away to Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Before we get started on any of that, please like and subscribe to us on YouTube or any major podcast platform. And of course, please follow RBLR Sports on social media such as Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, wherever at RBLR Sports. Now, Carlos, if you could, get us going with our quick recap here before we jump into the actual analysis.
Absolutely. You had Jordan Farr in goal as per usual. Jordan Doherty ahead of him with Lasso and Guillen. Manjoma made his debut right after being announced at that right wing back spot. Rather surprising. I thought we'd see Pacific get in there and get the start again after coming back from his international games. Nonetheless, Manjoma was in there. In the midfield, you had Hilton, Crisostomo, and then Blake Bodley out on that left side. Ahead of them, you had Cal Jennings, Leo Fernandez made a start, and Arteaga was the main man up top. Like I said, Manjoma immediately made available after being announced the day before. So we hadn't heard about this guy. He comes around and gets a start, so good for him. He had a decent enough game. That being said, the first half, like I kind of alluded to earlier, was definitely not what we were looking for. I'll tell you personally, having not been to a game in a while and really excited to be at Al Lang Stadium, seeing that first half brought the energy down a little bit, for sure. Super disjointed. The passes weren't connecting. We were creating a lot of turnovers. It ultimately led to one of the Rhode Island goal by Dikwa in the 16th minute. That being said, we came out, like James said here, like a bat out of hell. It scored 4 unanswered goals in the second half. Looked much better, obviously. Scoring 4 goals in one half is always fantastic. Looked like a genuinely different team. We'll talk about some of the reasons why that may be, including one name who you might not have heard too much be mentioned by us, but a name in Joshua Perez that had a huge impact in that second half that I'd like to mention a bit more later on. Standings update. 2 teams have won 3 from 3, and 2 teams have lost 3 from 3. Louisville City, being one of those teams, has won their first 3 games against mediocre opponents. I'll qualify their wins. Detroit City has also won their first 3 games, came out again, like James said, like a bat out of hell to start the year. A bit surprising, in my opinion, from Detroit, but good for them. Always, it's good to see a team succeed that you don't dislike, and they have a good community out there. So I think they've been kind of fiending for a good season. It looks like this could be a good enough year for them. The teams that have 0 points, the 2 teams that have not won or drawn in their first 3 games, Colorado Springs Switchbacks, and an opponent we'll talk about later on, Pittsburgh Riverhounds SC. That's a surprising one. You'll never, ever really hear us talk about Pittsburgh having 0 points after 3 games. Always been a good enough team to avoid that. Lots to talk about there. Table looks interesting. It's only 3 games in, but you have Charleston Battery just 1 point behind, having a game in hand in 3rd place. Hartford Athletic in 4th, Rowdies in 5th, North Carolina in 6th, Loudoun 7th, Miami 8th, Indy 9th, and then Rhode Island sitting all the way down in 11th, sadly, to start the year. Birmingham ahead of them in 10th, and again, Pittsburgh in last place. Mentioned Orange County earlier. They have 8 points. Sacramento Republic also has 8 points. 3 teams have 8 points over there, San Antonio being that 3rd one. West Coast looks pretty open, much more competition, I'd say, than usual. I usually kind of give them crap because the Eastern Conference always feels a bit better than the West. But I'll tell you what, Las Vegas having an actually competitive team, being in 5th place after 4 games, not bad. I mean, it's much better than we could say about them in the past. Lots to talk about. We could go on about the Western Conference for a while because I think there's some interesting storylines, but we'll save that for another episode. Just keep an eye on teams like Las Vegas because they actually exist now. I think it's fun to know that they have a real team and they can get points. And then some interesting other storylines, like I said, with Colorado having 0 points, Pittsburgh having 0 points, Rhode Island having a really, really good roster, but having a shaky start, let's say, down in 11th place after 3 games. Okay. Other teams aside, the only teams we care about for this segment are your Tampa Bay Rowdies and Rhode Island FC. In that first half, James, we've talked about how I kept using the word disjointed while I was watching the game. I was talking to my dad, and Chris Dominguez. Chris was there. Shout out Chris. The hoop sleeve. We were chatting, and in that first half, the word we kept using was disjointed. What the hell happened, James? Rhode Island's a good enough team, but we just didn't even look like we didn't have a great game our prior game, right? We certainly didn't look like the team that played well enough in that first game against San Antonio. It just looked totally out of whack. What was going on for you?
Yeah, it was very interesting to watch that first half, and I am really glad that by the end of the game we had gotten out of whatever funk we were in to start. Just want to highlight before we get into any further analysis of the game itself that we were missing several players again. Unfortunately, Freddie Kleeman was back on the sideline, so that is something to note. He joined Nick Moon, Charlie Dennis, Zach Haribo, and Zane Bubb, who were all out. I believe at the game I saw Zane Bubb in a brace on his leg, so I don't know if that's I feel like that's not a good sign. But if we get into the game itself, yeah, the first half was definitely a real big problem. So it kind of went back, just like you said, to the game against North Carolina, where North Carolina is a team that really prefers, if they can, to play not necessarily without possession, but also when they are out of possession, that's when they look their best. I think that was definitely the case for Rhode Island. Rhode Island are, at least from their first couple of games, they seem to show a real willingness to try and press when out of possession and allow the other team to have possession so that they can try and win it back in really good positions, which would generally be closer to our 18-yard box. Additionally, something that they noted not only in the broadcast, but also something that was noted by John Morrissey at USL Tactics, something that you could see with your own eyes if you were watching the game, but they will also try to compress the field so that it's harder for us to get out of that back out of that press that they are putting us under. So when we start with the ball, the Rowdies generally do like to pass it around from the back. That is something that we have seen from the Neil Collins days, and it is something that I believe so far Robbie Nielsen has wanted to stick with as long as it is practicable, and maybe even a couple times when it wasn't. But putting that to the side, North Carolina and Rhode Island both took advantage of that. I think that North Carolina was actually stronger in their press, but you're absolutely right that it was a real big problem for us to try and play it out of the back against Rhode Island. When I discussed this with the manager, Robbie Nielsen, after the game, I asked, we noticed that through the first half, it kind of calmed down after a while. But how did it start for you? And the word that he used for me was erratic. I think that that is a very good word for what was going on, because our passing was really not good for those first, let's say, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Obviously, within that time, it was where Albert Dikwa got his goal. I believe that we had, in the second minute, there was almost an own goal off of Forrest Lasso because Jordan Doherty cleared it right into his legs. So that was one chance. There was another really good chance for Dikwa in the 11th minute. His shot was saved from effectively point blank. But yeah, this was us having a lot of trouble trying to play out of the back, but still continuing to try and play out of the back. Now, I don't mind if we are a team that looks to play out of the back because we're used to that. I think that we have the players capable of doing it. But at the moment, if it's not working, maybe you need to look for something else. And we'll get to that when we get into the second half. But yeah, it was just really, really, you already said the word disjointed, just disjointed passing. It looked awful in the end, and it did cost us. It could have cost us a lot more, in my opinion, on a couple of occasions. But luckily, this was something also that, you could see with your own eyes, but Robbie Nielsen mentioned it here, that we switched up the formation just a little bit around the 30th minute and put Leo Fernandez in a number 10 role. He was able to calm things down a lot more, in my opinion. It's unfortunate that we didn't get to see him for a whole game. It's unfortunate for a lot of reasons, one of them being, the potential for injury. But yeah, he was really good in that role at just getting us a little bit slower possession, just keeping the ball a little bit longer than we were before and being calm when he had it at his feet. I think that Lewis Hilton, I think that Danny Crisostomo, they both had really good games. We're going to get to that, but they did not have the best of games in the first half. I think that even more so, though, it was probably on the back line and their passing a little bit in the first half that got us into trouble, because naturally that's where not North Carolina, but Rhode Island this week. That's where Rhode Island is going to do the majority of their pressing when it's closest to our box. And yeah, we were having just all sorts of trouble getting around that. So Leo Fernandez is a very good player on the ball. Everybody knows that. He was very calm on the ball, and he was able to actually settle us down as a team for those last 15 minutes. So I appreciated that, because up till then, yeah, we were looking terrible. I remember there was one moment before the 20th minute where Aaron Guillen got lucky playing out of the back with the ball at his feet. He was trying to dribble it a little bit, and I thought it was a very weak foul. I thought that the call was actually not correct, but I'm not going to say no to it because it helped us out. They won the ball in a very good position, and if the referee hadn't blown his whistle, then we were going to be under serious pressure to give up another goal. So, yeah, when Leo moved in roughly around the 21st minute is when I have it. I don't know if that is when exactly that switch occurred, but it was good to see that Robbie Nielsen was able to take a little bit of feedback, obviously, from the team on the field and realize that, hey, something isn't working. We need to switch some stuff up. And Leo went and actually was able to accomplish that.
Yeah. You kind of highlighted all the chances I was going to mention for Rhode Island, because like I say chances for Rhode Island, but well, I mean, to their credit, it was the high press, but it was like dumb mistakes by us. Like
it was,
it was Guillen turning over, like making a slide tackle is in the 10th minute, try and like step up to the ball, just immediately gives it to, what is that, 22? I'm looking back at the highlights. Refresh my memory here for Rhode Island. All of a sudden they have a great look, and that's the one where they hit the post. Jordan Farr gets a hand on it, but it skims off the post in the 9 minute 30 seconds.
Yeah.
20 seconds later, we're trying to play it out the back again, like you said, and again, just really, really, really clear chance for Rhode Island, because I'm trying to make out who made this pass, but it was Forrest Lasso who expected the pass to go to someone else. If you're remembering this play, literally 20 seconds later, Forrest Lasso just kind of standing there waiting for that ball to go to wherever he thinks it was going. and all of a sudden, a Rhode Island player is right there in the box, like you said. I think there was a chance you mentioned. Jordan Farr saves it point blank, and there was like multiple chances like that throughout the half, and those were back to back in the 10th minute, mistake after mistake. The goal that Rhode Island scored was, again, someone just kind of falling asleep at the back. It was a goal kick where Rhode Island's goalkeeper, what's his name, Jackson Lee, he slipped on the goal kick, and
Yeah.
Ralph Mobb was giving him crap for it for like 3 seconds, and then we realized, like that ball is actually like behind our back line, and Dequa is fully onside. I don't know what happened there. I mean, the only guy anywhere close to him was Forrest Lasso. I would assume Forrest Lasso just kind of fell asleep back there. Didn't realize Dequa was making this run. And all of a sudden, he's got miles of space. By the time Jordan Farr steps up to it, and Dequa, heads it around, there's a good, like, I don't know, I'm looking like 8 to 10 feet between Dequa and Farr. Farr had no chance. I mean, he probably could have done a little bit better, maybe positioned himself a bit better when he was coming out for that ball, because there was so much space, like it's not even close. So backline didn't help him at all. I guess he tries to foul Dequa, and Dequa has an open net, whatever. And all of a sudden they're up 1-0, right? And the game changes, the vibe of the entire stadium changes a bit. We were a bit nervy, but it hadn't really led to a goal up until that moment. And then you realize, well, why are these text notifications so loud, James? Look at this. And then you realize, whoa, we're down 1-0. We're not playing well. And that's when things kind of start to kind of creep into the fans, right? The fans get much more negative. Everybody's kind of like, everybody's complaining about every missed pass. And you kind of start to notice the missed passes like a lot more, the little mistakes. So it felt like the turnovers were constant, because they kind of were in that first half. Like, we were making really, really silly mistakes. Again, it was just disjointed at the end of the day. I just keep using that word because I felt like that's what best describes it. Our best chance was, again, the kind of a silly opportunity. Arteaga got like a little lob pass, and all of a sudden he chips it over, hits the crossbar off that bounce. It's crazy attempt at a finish.
It was really well done from Arteaga, but the next note that I have is when Jordan Farr went down looking like he was injured.
Yeah.
And after that, it is in parentheses, Jackson Lee has been looking to hit the long ball for almost this entire half, because they kept having so much success with it.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the other goals in a little bit. But you'll notice like the first 3 goals of this game were like these funky balls in the air, like anything can happen type situation. Yeah, maybe for Lee that was the game plan. It seemed like for the Rowdies, our first clear opportunities were just these funky, looping balls that all of a sudden end up with a guy like Arteaga or Jennings. And Arteaga had a really good look. Again, like I said, could have been easily been 1-1 after the opportunity, like in the 30th minute. But yeah, ultimately that was just kind of the first half. It was maybe one chance. I think that was it for the Rowdies. You had that one opportunity early on, where Leo plays bodily in down the left wing. He takes a shot from a really tough angle that was never really going to challenge Lee. It really was just that Arteaga chance that, man, like if that went in, it would have sent the stadium like into chaos, because there was so much like pent up, like waiting for something to happen that came out of nowhere. Definitely didn't deserve to equalize the game in that first half, but it would have been great if we did. That's the first half for me, James. I'm not recalling anything else. I'm not like thinking of any other opportunities that we might have had. It really was just kind of like that the whole time. You kind of mentioned this. I think we were pretty lucky to be down only 1-0 in that first half. Not that Rhode Island was playing fantastic. Again, we just gave them so many like point blank opportunities, one-on-one chances, like really dumb chances. So it could have easily been 2. If they finished all their chances, it could have been 3-0 for them. If everything kind of just fell into place for them, which it seemed like it kind of did. They were playing their game, and they did exactly what they wanted to in that first half.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. They were able to pump the ball long and win all the second balls, and that's kind of where the game was ultimately won. In fact, after the 90 plus minutes, because it turned into 11 minutes of stoppage time in the second half, but that's neither here nor there for the time being. It ultimately comes down to winning the second ball was the most important thing that happened in this game. In the first half, it was all Rhode Island winning the second ball. When either Jackson Lee or Jordan Farr kicked it long, somebody headed it, and the second player to win that ball was Rhode Island in the first half. That was extremely important. So in that first 45, there were 7-3 shots. Rhode Island had the 7. 3-0 offside. Tampa Bay Rowdies, all 3 of those, and it was roughly equal possession. So that kind of gives you a relative viewpoint of the first half. It just wasn't going our way. I wish I could have gotten a pass completion percentage for that first half, because I feel like it would have been worse than the second half. But we do not have that stat, unfortunately, based on the notes that I have here. So if we get into the second half, Carlos, now that one was obviously extremely different, and that is where we really started to shine here. Unfortunately, though, it should be noted, Leo Fernandez sat down almost immediately after the kickoff. I got to ask Robbie Nielsen about that afterwards, and he said that it was probably just the tension and tightness in his thigh. So I don't know if that means that he was feeling, something that's an injury, or if it's just you're coming back too quickly, you got to slow it down. I don't know. We're going to get some more information either as the week goes by or possibly come game time against Pittsburgh Riverhounds this upcoming weekend. We are all going to have to see.
That's
together.
usually when we get the news.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
I mean, we didn't know Manjoma was on the team until the day before the game. So
yeah,
I don't expect us to hear about any injury news until the lineup comes out on Saturday.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Carlos, you are correct about that. But at the same time, something that really helped us out in this game was something that I actually didn't expect one bit. Josh Perez came on, and he did not play as a winger as I would have expected him to. That's where we've seen him play. He played as a number 10. Now, I don't know how much he played as a number 10 in his career. I know that as a youth player, he was actually on the U.S. youth national teams with Christian Pulisic and, Tyler Adams, that whole class. He was part of that class. He has since actually suited up internationally for the El Salvador national team, but I don't know exactly where he played when he was part of that team. Either way, he kind of looked pretty seamless as a number 10. I thought that he had a very good game there. We're going to hit on that more, but that is how we replace the hole that Leo Fernandez opened up when he went off the field. Cal Jennings also was starting to put their back line under a bit more pressure, and we were starting to apply our own press a lot more. I think that played a pretty big role. And when we kept trying to play it out of the back for a little while, just the first couple of minutes there, maybe 5-10 minutes at the most, it wasn't working, just like it wasn't in the first half. Now, again, we do have the players for this, but if it's not working, you kind of have to look and see if maybe it's time to switch things up. Ultimately, that is what happened. And my next note before we have a good chance is that both Aaron Guillen and Lewis Hilton had gone over the top of Rhode Island's back line to really good effect, creating something positive for us. So I think that that's where we actually really saw this. As I said in the first half, it was Jackson Lee pumping those balls up, and they would win the second ball in our half, usually in a very good position. Rhode Island would. In the second half, it was all of us doing that pumping over the back line. And then Rhode Island would kind of be like, oh, the ball's over my head. I got to turn around. And that's where we would win the second ball, again, usually in a good position. So I think that that was how we really got the second half changed around and going in our direction. And Carlos, I'll turn it over to you to start going into our chances here, because they racked up real fast. They racked up real fast.
Yeah, I mean, it really did change. Like, I don't know, change the game. Is that too cliche to say? It changed how we were playing, certainly, when Joshua Perez came in. And I've, full disclosure, I haven't really bought into Joshua Perez having like a starting role on this team or anything yet. Like, he, at no point, last year last year when he kind of joined the team, was there a moment where I was like, oh man, like this guy, like is really, really good. Like he can contribute a lot to the team, like early, like, off the get-go. And I was kind of expecting Damian Rivera to come in and fill in a more attacking role, maybe drop someone else back. Leo Fernandez, I don't know. I wasn't paying too much of close attention to like what formation we were rocking with. So I guess it makes sense that a Joshua Perez type player came in, but I wasn't really expecting it. And the way he filled in that number 10 role, James, like you said, a role that I didn't know he was capable of, a role that I wasn't really even aware he played much or ever, was awesome. I mean, he just came in, moved the ball well. He was pushing the ball up the field. He was facilitating a lot of our opportunities. And it changed the game. I mean, early on in that half, we got a couple corners. Lewis Hilton put in a nice corner that could have been close to an Olympico. But we're pushing numbers up there, and everybody's pushing up. Everybody's just kind of scrambling for the ball, and that's when we kind of get one of those goofy goals I mentioned early on. Even again, I think I said those first 3 goals were kind of those goofy looping ball goals. Forrest Lasso he's not even facing the Rhode Island goal. He's looking away from the Rhode Island goal. He's looking at Jordan Farr. Ball's coming down, and he just flicks it, from almost half field, and Arteaga is there making the run, and flicks it on with his head. 1-1 Rowdies, tied the game in the 54th minute. Changes the entire game. Still at that point felt like it kind of came out of nowhere, but again, we were kind of building very, very quickly, racking up those opportunities, like you said, especially with that Joshua Perez sub. And after that, again, the game just kind of changed entirely. We were stacking up the opportunities, and Rhode Island was kind of reeling a bit. Maybe this is the product of being, a newish team that's kind of coming together. Doesn't really know how to play a full 90 because they played a great first 45. They have a great roster that on paper should be able to, play well enough in the second half to get a draw, whatever, fight it out for, a second goal. But they didn't really have any chances in the second half. A couple, in garbage time, we were already up a few goals, whatever. But we were peppering them. Lewis Hilton had a shot from outside the box, which I love to see because I don't see him take those shots too often. But when he does, it's dangerous stuff. Cal Jennings gets a ball over the top that hits the post that I thought went in. I was already celebrating it. I swear, I was going crazy with Chris Dominguez, and everybody was going crazy. We just thought the ball went in. We had no clue it didn't even go in. He made that foul. I thought they called it back for offside or something, whatever. Hit the post, obviously. So it's clear the Rowdies are in control of the game at this point. Later on, another goofy goal. Jordan Farr grabs the ball, boots it out of the field, and who's there? It's Cal Jennings. That's a strategy that you can do with Cal Jennings up top, which we've never, since I've been a fan of the Rowdies, it's been a while. And I don't really recall a player like Cal Jennings where we can just boot the ball up to and hope he's there. And it works for a guy like him because he's so quick. He dribbles the ball so well, and he can finish from these really weird angles. He was one-on-one with the goalie, so you kind of expect him to finish, but it was a beautiful finish nonetheless. Left foot kind of curling into the corner. It was just awesome. That was our second goal. We're up 2-1 in the 67th minute. Just lovely, lovely stuff. 4 minutes later, I don't know. Lewis Hilton whips in a ball. Sorry, it wasn't Lewis Hilton. Jordan Doherty gets on the end of a header on a free kick. It's over by this point. Rhode Island didn't really have any chances. I wasn't concerned after we went up 2-1, just based on how we were playing and how Rhode Island looked. In my head, we went up 2 goals, and I was a little concerned, though, just because of the San Antonio thing a few weeks ago. You might remember that game. But we just looked like the much better team. Arteaga had another look. Safik Nyongabire came in late in the game and peppered it a little bit. Everybody was contributing. And by the end, I think the last goal was Damian Rivera in stoppage time comes in and just ices the game. That's a long way of recapping those 4 goals, but the point is we had a lot of opportunities. Rhode Island did not have a lot of opportunities. It was a totally different game from that first half. Irrecognizable from that first half team. Also, Christian Ortiz got in the game. That was really cool. I mean, he actually had a couple good looks too. He could have probably gotten on the score sheet for a couple other things.
Good looks, couple big hits.
Yeah, that was the most hyped I've ever been for a yellow card, to be honest. I was going crazy. I was like, this kid just bodied this grown man into the Rhode Island bench. I don't think he knew that Christian Ortiz was a 16-year-old. This kid, I forgot. I don't even know who he bodied, but the guy was ready to scrap with Christian Ortiz.
Oh, he was trying to fight him.
Yeah, I think it was their coach or their bench. It's yo, chill. I think someone told him it's a kid. It's literally a kid. Just calm down. But I wish he did, fight him. I think it would have been so funny. I mean, this I don't know. This is a totally unrelated thing, but and unimportant to the actual game. But I love seeing that kind of dog in a player.
Yeah.
Especially a kid. I mean, this kid's 16. He's really just out there getting a feel for the game. He probably wasn't expecting to get into the game. He mentioned it himself in the little video they put out. He was pretty nervous. He was gonna throw up, he said.
Yeah.
Before he came in the game. When they let him know he's coming in, he got so nervous he said he was going to throw up. But he just spit it out, and that's what he said. He said, I quote, spit it out, and I went in. And I was like, all right, man, like, go for it. Like, that's what they put in the little video on Twitter. I'm just glad. It was so fun seeing him like celebrate with Damian Rivera, that goal, to ice the game. So it looks like they kind of really, really appreciate this kid being on the team. It seems like he's kind of like grown into it, which is really cool. Because sometimes I feel like these kids kind of come in, it's more of like an internship, put in like professional terms, I guess we can say. Like maybe they're just kind of there, but it looks like Christian Ortiz can genuinely contribute.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Not that important to this game, but a great note. Good for him to get his debut, and in a pretty electrifying way, I'll say. So yeah, lots of great things happening in the second half. Plenty of offensive opportunities. The defense did not have to do much in the second half.
No.
So luckily, Jordan Farr wasn't called upon much more. Forrest Lasso wasn't called upon much more. We were able to get the boys up the field, and even Jordan Doherty got a goal. Who would have expected that? So yeah, great second half overall. If you can put a performance like that together across 90 minutes, which I think is what it's kind of been a theme, not a theme. It's happened one other time. When we talked about the San Antonio game, we had a great, early part of the game and then ran out of fuel the last 20 minutes. And this game, we just had a fantastic second half. So the team looks great. This is good stuff. Obviously, a 4-goal performance is great. A 4-goal half is even better because there's potential there for an 8-goal game in theory. So I'm just really, really happy how that went. But early narrative, James, is there anything to take away from these first few games and kind of what we took away from the second half 4-goal performance?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for one thing, our ability to play out of the press so far is not there. That's something that I think that we can
For sure.
firmly state after, let's say, 3 games. I don't think it was such a big problem facing San Antonio. It was definitely bigger with North Carolina and then this past game against Rhode Island, of course. But that is a problem for the time being. This is a team that will continue to try and play out the back. I believe that, and I believe that we are good enough to do so. I believe that we will eventually be able to actually play it out of the back versus just about anyone in this league. But for the time being, we do not have the communication or people on the same page enough to be able to sort that out. That's a problem.
Yeah.
However, what we also saw in this game was Robbie Nielsen's ability to light a fire under these guys. And, I guess it isn't too big of a bad word, but light a fire under their asses.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know.
James, there's kids that listen to this show. What are we doing here? You can blur that out. Blur that out.
We'll cut that, guys. But in the meantime, I did want to just say there were a couple of people that we spoke to in the post-game press conference. We got to speak with originally Eddie Manjoma. I got to talk to him about how cool it was to make his debut. By the way, he said that he really loved all the fans. So keep coming to games, folks. Keep coming to games. We've been already over our percentage of people attending, our attendance percentage, if I can get the words out, from last year. And, it's only 2 games, but if we can keep this up, we're going to look great all season for everybody, including Eddie Manjoma. I got to speak with him. I got to speak with Cal Jennings, Forrest Lasso, and finally Christian Ortiz, who was there to talk about how he almost threw up. But all of them did note that there were words said at halftime. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, so I'll just leave it at that. I think that you can all infer the way that those words were delivered and, maybe some of the words that were included there. But I think that Robbie Nielsen did light a fire under some of these guys and really tell them, like, you need to go out there and quit playing the way that you're playing. So, it's very interesting as a professional. There are some people, I'm sure, who will want to play very calm. They need to stay in a certain zone. They can't get too high. They can't get too low. They just need to be able to play calm, and they can receive the ball. They can turn. They can find somebody else. I'm sure there are other players that need to be go, 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 go. They need to be somebody has a chip on their shoulder. They're on edge. They need to fight, and, all this kind of stuff. I don't know which is right for every single individual player, but I think we saw from Saturday night that, let's say, maybe the majority of Rowdies players do need to have a little bit of edge to them to go out there and start playing at speed. And they need to go, 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 beat this team. We don't want to beat this team. We want to crush this team. That's kind of the mentality that maybe the Rowdies need to have, because they came out in the second half. And again, all of the players that we spoke to mentioned that there were some words at halftime. So take from that what you will. I believe that I think the halftime talk was a little bit yelling, let's say. And I think that when the players all came out, they had it in their heads that they were ready to go. They need to beat this Rhode Island team into dust. And they went out there with all of this verve and vigor and fire in their bones. And they went and scored 4 goals. They could have scored more. I'll tell you, there was one other note that I wanted to tack on real fast. There were, like, in the 10 minutes from 50 to 60, I think I have 4 or 5 chances in my notes. We only scored 1 of those. Now, I think that our final big chances stat in this game was 7. I'm going to check that really fast here.
I
But
think it's about 8.
if we go to a game where we get that many big chances, our big chances were 8, actually, for this past game, according to FOTMob. If we go to another game where we miss that many big chances in a 10-minute stretch, that's usually a bad thing. That's usually something where afterwards Carlos and I are going to lament it. Obviously, that's not how this game went, because we just kept going at them and we just kept beating them back. And you could see that also kind of play out in a little bit of feistiness and a couple of words said between the Rhode Island and Tampa Bay Rowdies players. So, yeah, I think that that's something to take away. Maybe the Rowdies players need to be on an edge. Maybe they need to go out there a little bit angry. And also, if we cannot play through the back, we know that there's a plan B, and the plan B actually works pretty well. We've got the players to do it. Manuel Arteaga and Cal Jennings both contributed and received very good passes from the back that were really just long pumped balls. So,
Yeah.
I'm excited about all of those things generally. And with that, Carlos, if we have anything else, let me know, or we'll do our man of the match.
I'll say a couple things to kind of wrap up my thoughts on this game. One, Arteaga is like sneaky fast. Like he's a quick guy.
Yeah.
So like he's got a good build to him. I just wouldn't expect him to be as quick as he is. Side note, like, yeah, but I'll throw that out there. On playing it out of the back with the people we have back there, Guillen, Doherty, especially, I'm not concerned about us not being able to fix that problem, because Doherty is by trade like a defensive midfielder.
Exactly.
He can play the ball out of the back. It's what he's done in his early part of his career a lot. He played that role for us a lot in his time with us. Aaron Guillen, we know to be a fantastic backline guy who has often played like that left back role, like a true left back role. And we've played 4 in the back in the past. He's been out there in the left back spot. He's gotten up the field. He can move the ball well. Forrest Lasso, not his strong suit, sure, but he's a great defender. He's multiple time defender of the year. Like, we know him to at least be capable of that.
Yes.
So with those 3 in the back, I'm not particularly concerned about not being able to fix this issue. Technically, Lasso got an assist this game, so out of those 3, I mean, technically the best passer, whatever, most influential pass of the game, maybe. I don't know. It wasn't really a pass; it's kind of like a boot, but you get my point. I think this whole thing kind of just comes with a little bit of a new midfield. Crisostomo has been starting for us. He's been having a pretty big role. Maybe that connection is still building up. You throw in Manjoma into the starting lineup as well. Like, that's somebody new who you have to learn how to play with. And Jordan Farr back there. I mean, Jordan Farr is a new goalie as well. They've had a pretty good preseason from my understanding, but hey, like, it's only 3 games in. I'm sure they'll figure it out. It's still a new team for him. And it's a new goalie for that back line who I've obviously been here before. What else was I going to say? Crap. I was going to say one more thing. Back line, Arteaga's fast. Manjoma, promising. Like, there's something there with him. I could see him having a bigger role with this team. Not like a particularly, what's the word? Like, noticeable first game for the Rowdies. Didn't have a ton of mistakes, so that's fine. Didn't contribute a ton, but again, he seems to have the toolkit. Is that a word? Toolkit?
Yeah.
Toolkit, yeah.
Yeah.
He would have the toolkit to be able to fit in with this team nicely. But I do think Pacific still probably gets that starting spot back pretty soon. But but great competition out there, and wing back depth, which is what I've been asking for. We've talked about it in the preseason. That's what I was worried about. That's what I was still worried about as we kind of got into the game, into the season this year, especially with Moon still not having recovered from that injury. Wing back depth is big, and I'm happy to have at least one wing back back there on the bench. I guess Joshua Perez is technically available to do that, but I mean, man, if he plays like he did in that 10 spot going forward, I don't know, keep an eye on him for that spot too. Who knows? Okay. That's everything I have for the Rhode Island game. Happy with the performance. Happy with how he played in that second half. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Sorry. Last thing. I wasn't sure if Robbie Nielsen was capable of lighting a fire under someone's, you know what, right?
Under someone's tuchus.
Yeah, like in our chat with him and how he chats after the game, based on what I understand, like he's a very calm, cool, collected guy.
Generally, yes.
Yeah. Like he doesn't really he doesn't sound like, even after like a bad performance, James, you would know better than me. You were there for the San Antonio game. Calm demeanor, like not really like particularly, I mean, obviously upset, but not really showing that or too vocal about that, too critical of any of his players, like specifically or anything. Like I would have loved to be in that locker room at halftime and see what he's like when he's, trying to light that fire under someone. Yeah. Obviously we don't see him, in that role, but I'm really, really happy to know that he's capable of doing that, because he just seemed like he seemed like really, I mean, he's a nice guy. Sometimes you need like the angry coach to come out, and it seems like that's what happened against Rhode Island. So thank you, Robbie Nielsen, for doing that and for showing us that you can do that. I think we're going to have a good year if that's what we get like in the second half for a full 90. Okay, James, we're going to get there finally. Who is your man of the match?
This was extremely difficult for me, I got to say. I think in the second half, I was literally going back and forth between three players. Every time they touched it, I was like, oh, he could be man of the match. Oh, he could be man of the match. Oh, he could be man of the match. Anyway, I think that if we went on FOTMob, they would actually give it a little bit more to the defenders. Jordan Doherty scored. That's not very frequent for a defender, obviously. On top of all that, he had incredible stats. That is why he was on the USL Team of the Week, if you saw that online. Aaron Guillen was also on the bench for the USL Team of the Week, by the way.
Nice.
Just something to note, they had extremely good stats in terms of their turnover wins and I believe their pass completion rate. Although maybe that wasn't one because I don't remember how the first half went for them. But
Doherty also had a goal line clearance, by the way, that we didn't mention at all when we were talking about
this. Yes, there was that too. That
was
was
a really
included in the
wacky chance that didn't, like, it wasn't like a particularly, powerful shot, but he was there in what could have been a very easy goal for them. So shout out to him too.
Yeah, and as much as I would love to generally go with a defender, as a former defender myself at an extremely low level compared to this, I was really leaning towards these three other players that I'll get to: Josh Perez, Danny Crisostomo, and Manuel Arteaga. I think that Danny Crisostomo was strong throughout, including in the first half, although I think that he was a better player on the defensive side in the first half. I think that Manuel Arteaga was very good in terms of applying pressure to Rhode Island. Even in the first half, he had the only chance that you and I noted, Carlos. And I think that in the second half, God, he was everywhere. He was putting them all under so much pressure. He and Cal Jennings won so many of the second balls that I was referring to, off of Jordan Farr's long kicks or Aaron Guillen, Forrest Lasso, Jordan Doherty, whoever did it. So with all of that being said, and he got a goal, Manuel Arteaga is my man of the match. It was extremely difficult for me to choose between those three guys, but I went with Manuel because I think that he would, like, if I didn't give it to him in this game, I would be giving it to someone for a really good game and another reason. I think that Manuel Arteaga for me had the actual just quote, like, top of the line best game. So that's what I'll say. Apologize to Jordan Doherty, but you already got on the USL Team of the Week anyway. You don't need it from us. We don't count anywhere near as much as the USL because well, I guess they don't pay your salary, but they help pay your salary. We're just out here calling out names on the internet.
Yeah. Speaking of USL, if anybody from USL HQ is listening to this, I'm looking for a job for next year. Hit me up. I'll send you my resume. Anyway, more importantly, my man of the match, Jordan Doherty, has a good shot for it. And again, he probably definitely deserves it. But again, I'm not going to feel too bad about it because he was on the Team of the Week. Obviously, I didn't pick him. My pick was pretty easy to me, honestly, pretty easy to pick for me. It was Joshua Perez. And it was, again, because he came in and genuinely was able to change the game. Like, it's hard to point to a player like coming in from the bench and immediately making an impact on not just like the game, but like how everybody is playing. He was able to do that, and it really surprised me again because I wasn't expecting that from him. I wasn't expecting like the offensive kind of like push that he was able to provide this team, the spark he was able to provide this team, especially coming in for Leo Fernandez, who is Leo Fernandez. Like, I mean, he's one of the greatest players that we've had. We've been blessed to see in a Rowdies uniform in the past several years. But Joshua Perez came in and filled that role beautifully. Helped create a ton of the chances that eventually led to goals, and a ton of the chances that could have ended up in goals that didn't. He could have gotten, several assists if things went his way. But he didn't. But he certainly deserves my man of the match, in my opinion. First one, I think, from RBLR. So shout out to him for that. Hopefully, there's many, many more coming from him. But like you said, there's plenty of players in this game that could have gotten that, especially in the second half. I think Jordan Doherty in particular deserves that shout out from the USL Team of the Week because he had a fantastic game. But Joshua Perez is my man of the match for all those reasons mentioned already.
All right, well, there you go, folks. It actually went to Manuel Arteaga and Josh Perez, but we could have went with Danny Crisostomo. We could have went with Jordan Doherty. Could have went with, I don't know, Cal Jennings. Either way, those are our two this
Christian
week.
Ortiz.
Yes, exactly. We'll hope to see all of those names as RBLR men of the match somewhere in the future. But while you're listening to us, liking and subscribing is free. If you think you might need some new threads, though, you can support our podcast a little bit more by heading over to shop.rblrsports.com and checking out all the designs we've got going there. There will be a link in the description, and you can use a promo code COYR to get 10% off your order. Please do check it out, and we will see you at one of these games in one of our shirts. Now, Carlos, we went really long in that review, which is fair because it was an incredible, ridiculous, crazy game.
Yeah.
Let's try and do our Pittsburgh review with a little less time on it.
Oh, I'll be speedy. Don't worry. There's not much. My thoughts on this game are succinct. I'll give you the summary on Pittsburgh, though. Obviously, it's Saturday, 7 p.m. The Rowdies will play what James has described as the luckless Pittsburgh Riverhounds in, I was going to say beautiful Pennsylvania, but I don't know if anybody's ever actually said that. They have not won or tied a game from their first 3 tries. They're due for one eventually. They're due for a point eventually. Hopefully, it's not this game. Eric Dick is in net with Danny Rivera, Ilel Usumanu, Danny Griffin, Luke Biasi, and former Rowdy Junior Etu across the back. Junior Etu had a lot of success with this team last season. Obviously, they're struggling to get off on the get-go so far this year, but again, a good enough team based on this roster with Robbie Mertz, Jackson Walty, and Conardo Forbes staying behind Babakar Dien and Edward Kizza. They're fine. It's a good enough team. They have players that could be dangerous. Obviously, you've heard of several of these players already. Plenty of great USL talents on here, but not particularly strong. Certainly not, bad enough to have 0 points in their first 3 games, in my opinion. But obviously not a great start for them. Rivera might be out this game, likely with the Shields into the back line to replace him. Kizza has 1 goal, and that's it for the team. He's their leading goal scorer with 1 goal. Deanne has 1 assist, and again, that's it. Obviously no other assists. He's created 2 big chances. Griffin has 1 big chance created. And Langston Blackstock likes shooting. They don't have the best defense. It's getting worse. Louisville kind of, went to town with them. Kiz is definitely their best striker. Without being disrespectful, James, this is certainly a great chance to nail down 3 more points. If we don't get them while they're down right now, like you said, we're going to wish that we got them later on in 2024 because they're going to fix it. Like, it's not going to be this terrible team for this entire time. Right. It's a good enough team, and they're always managing to put together decent performances. I just don't think it's going to happen yet. Hint at my prediction. That being said, we always seem to struggle in Pittsburgh. That field's weird. It's narrow. It's a beautiful stadium, but it's a different type of field to play on for us. And we always seem to struggle. We've only won once, I believe, and it was that time we blew them out over there. But we seem to struggle over there. Only 1 win in my memory since having gone there. Not impossible. Obviously not impossible. They're not very good right now. But yeah, we seem to struggle over there. So just, caveat how bad they are with how bad we are in Pittsburgh typically. James, how do you think this game will go, keeping all that in mind?
Yeah, I wish I could say that I had a bit more in terms of analysis for this team. I've got to be perfectly honest and say that I haven't had a chance to watch even a minute of Pittsburgh's play other than highlights. Highlights is not exactly the same, though, so I won't count that. However, obviously, this is a time when we need to. I know what you're saying, Carlos, that we always struggle in Pittsburgh, and that is true, but this is the time for us to play them. When we get into the stretch at the end of the season, wherever we are, it could be fifth place, it could be first place. We're going to need more points. And we're going to be saying, man, I wish that we had more points here. I wish that we had more points there. We're not going to remember which games they were. This is one of those games. This is one of those games that the Rowdies need all 3 points. Pittsburgh is down. Pittsburgh is out. And I really think that this could be a trap game. This is where you have to make sure that the team is firing on all cylinders again. If that's what it takes, you need to punch them in the face if that's what it takes. But you need to get them at the same level that they were playing in the second half this past weekend, because Pittsburgh are ready to give up 3 points and we need to take them back. We're going to wish that we had them down the line. I'm just worried already. Like you said, there is that potential because we always go to Pittsburgh and we always have trouble. But at this point, look, folks, they're playing Junior Etu at left back right now. I should say left wing back. I really don't mean to poop on Junior Etu, but that's not his best position. We know that he's a midfielder and he is left-footed, and there are a lot of defensive midfielders who play as wing backs, but that's not his strongest position. If we're going to take the back line into account, Elal Osumanu is, he's fair enough. Danny Griffin is supposedly one of their center backs right now. He is not a defensive player. He was previously a more attacking midfielder, even than a defensive midfielder. He moved back last year as they were playing a different system that they needed him to step back and play next to Canardo Forbes. And now he's like even more defensive than that, according to what I've been, reading and seeing about them. Jackson Valti, he is in, I believe, his first professional season. He might have played MLS Next Pro last year. It's just, these are not the players that the Rowdies should have that much trouble with. Again, no disrespect. They're all going to be good players, whether they're getting there or they were there for Canardo Forbes. There's obviously a time limit on his career. Now, I don't think that's going to be this season necessarily, but maybe it is. So I really want the Rowdies to go out there, and I am worried that this is going to be a trap game, but this is where we need 3 points. We're going to wish when we're neck and neck with somebody down the line, if that's Louisville City, if that's Detroit City, who can say, but we're going to wish that we had all 3 points from this game. That's all that I can tell you.
I don't think it'll be like a trap game per se, though. Like, I think those who have been around the USL for a little bit know Pittsburgh to be like a pretty big team, not big, pretty good team. Past several seasons, obviously they've had great years. Last year was a great year for them. I think it's a team that's recognizable enough, and anybody who's been with the Rowdies for a little bit has seen that we've struggled over there. I hope Leo Fernandez reminds Robbie Nielsen of that, so he knows like what we're kind of going into, and he doesn't expect this to be a walkover game or anything like that, because it likely won't be. I don't think we're going to blow them out like we did that one time in Pittsburgh. It's possible, but I do think we'll win. I'll get into my prediction in a second, but I don't think it's going to be like a blowout like it was that one time. Yeah, they're not good. Obviously, like you said, right now they're struggling. I don't doubt that at some point they'll put it together somewhat. So kind of like you said, this is a time to play them, and this is a time to play them away. Right, like get all the points we can out of them.
Yeah,
kind of get them while they're down. Yeah, and we look good enough. If we play how we played in the second half, I think it'll go well for us. That's all I have to say on Pittsburgh. I don't know a ton about them, like you said. I haven't really watched a minute of Pittsburgh Riverhound soccer. I'd like to go to that stadium and see them play. I guess the Rowdies one day. It looks like a lovely place. The field's kind of wacky, but it gets the job done. I think we come out with a win this game, though. James, should we jump into the predictions?
Let's do it. All
right. I'm taking a Rowdies win 2-0. I think it's going to be comfortable enough. It won't be easy, but I think it'll be comfortable enough. I think we score our second goal in the 67th minute. After controlling possession pretty heavily. I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be too strong defensively based on what we know about them, and certainly not in the attack based on their 1 goal in 3 games. I don't think our back line will be too troubled by them. They're going to have to play a very direct, kind of mode of soccer, again, because of how narrow that field is. That'll hurt kind of our how we like to play the game, playing it out wide, throwing crosses into the middle. But I don't doubt we'll figure it out while we're there. So I think we win comfortable enough with a 2-0 result.
All right. I am partially willing this into the universe because I think we can. But as I said, I'm a little bit worried about that trap game. I'm going to call this a win, a 3-1 Rowdies win, possibly kind of similar to the way that we played this past weekend with Pittsburgh going up 1-0 first. Now, that is my prediction. We do have another 2-0 win prediction from our producer, Eureka. So, Carlos, you and Eureka either will be getting 3 points or you will not, but it'll be together.
Yep.
Anyone who has an opinion and listens to us, please help us out with your own and help, just tweet at us. Whatever you're thinking the game will be, you can let us know. I believe that Eureka should also be putting out a poll for all of our followers on Twitter, at least. So yeah, if you have an opinion, let us know and we will see who turns out to be correct. Now, Carlos, that is where we'll leave it on the Pittsburgh Riverhounds preview, hopefully with 3 points when we get back this time next week. Let's get into extra time here and say, first of all, there's expansion news as the USL turns to Roswell, Georgia and Buffalo, New York. Roswell is a suburb of Atlanta, so it's a little interesting. Supposedly their first priority for this team, or this organization, I should say, will be a team in the USL women's side. So I believe that is the Super League, the USL Super League. And they would ultimately be playing against the likes of the Tampa Bay Sun if all of that works out for them. And then the men's side, whatever division that would be in, is a lesser priority. So that's an interesting tack to take because I don't think that we've seen too many teams go with, we want to do both, but this is the women's side first. I don't think we've seen too many that have said we're going to do both right out the gate. It's usually one and then another one comes along, whether that's on the women's side or the men's side. So that's interesting. Buffalo, New York, also, that is one that I believe they have set up for coming online in 2025. Assumedly, everything has to go well for that to happen, of course. And we do hope that it goes well. And I'd love to get up to both Roswell, Georgia and Buffalo, New York at some point for a Rowdies game. I feel like that would be cool. If they end up in the USL Championship, maybe we'll see them play against the Tampa Bay Sun too. In the meantime, the other thing that I wanted to say related to the USL is a couple of former Rowdies had some success this weekend. Indy 11 lost to Detroit City 2-1, but Sebastian Guenzati got the first goal for them, so that's pretty cool. New Mexico United went away to Phoenix Rising, beat them 1-0, and who scored but Dayon Harris, former Tampa Bay Rowdy. That's also very cool. Now, in MLS, this one is the more interesting one, I think. 1-0 DC United over CF Montreal. Pedro Santos scored the winning goal in the 84th minute, but he came on in the 74th minute for starter Connor Antley, who, as far as I can tell, was playing at left back. Great stuff for him. Very interesting, and I'm happy to see him getting some type of success out there.
Nice. I know you said you would love to get up to Buffalo, New York for a Rowdies game. I'm not sure what else you would do in Buffalo, to be honest. It seems like way too cold for me to go up there. But I would go.
Preferably, you're right. Yeah. Let's say in the spring or summer. Good call.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah. I have one of my good friends from up there. I don't even think he likes going back. It's way too cold. I'm sure the wings are fantastic, though, up there. So keep that in mind when planning your future Rowdies away day travel. Also interesting in the Roswell thing. I don't know why you wouldn't just focus on having a USL Super League team. Like, why also do the men's team there? I'm not sure what kind of market there is for men's USL soccer there.
I'm not sure.
With Atlanta United there. We saw the downfall of the Atlanta Silverbacks several years ago and how lower division soccer went in the suburbs of Atlanta over there. I'm not gonna give them crap or anything yet. I don't see how well that's gonna go on the men's side. On the women's side, there's no women's team in Atlanta, right? There's no NWSL team or anything there, so that's great. I think that's great, and hopefully they kind of draw from that Atlanta United crowd, which I'm sure MLS will not be happy with. Cool. Another news, throwing this on your radar. There's plenty of soccer sickos that listen to this that are just craving for any soccer content. The greatest tournament in the world is back. the Copa Libertadores, the South American Champions League for the uncultured. It's a beautiful tournament. The
I'm looking at
greatest
some scores
atmospheres.
right now.
Yeah, the greatest atmospheres you've ever seen. The weirdest moments. It's always entertaining. If it's not a great game, something funny is bound to happen. And whether it's in, the mountains of Bolivia or the coast of Colombia, there's always something going on. And the Millonarios Flamengo game earlier today, there's like a Karol G concert like the next day. So like a fourth of the stadium was just blocked off because there's a huge stage set up for that concert the next day.
That's
in the middle of this
ridiculous.
incredible game. There's always some wacky stuff going on down there.
I see in that game, David Silva came off for Beckham Castro. Very interesting.
Yep. There's plenty of interesting names on the Brazilian teams. The second greatest tournament in the world, the U.S. Open Cup, is also back today or yesterday when you listen to this. Yeah, some great second round matchups coming up. When this comes out, there's also plenty of games coming on that night, tomorrow, or today for when you listen to this. It's just good stuff. There's plenty of games. There's so much soccer going on right now. And now's the time to really just dive into it and have a bunch of screens set up in your living room for it. Because there's Copa Libertadores, the U.S. Open Cup. My team in Ecuador, Liga de Quito, plays tonight at 10 p.m. in Peru. In a sold-out 70,000 person Monumental Stadium in Lima. It's going to be an awesome game. I'm so excited. Just awesome atmospheres. And if you're just a soccer sicko and you want stuff to watch, this is the great stuff to watch. Good games, good soccer, great atmospheres. And the U.S. Open Cup, don't even get me started on how awesome that is. That's all I got to say on those. Last thing, tune into our RBLR Deportes show, as well as the new Tampa Bay Sun program. We're going to have to change like RBLRS now. Like, this is so fun. We have actually stuff to talk about. We have Sun content coming out. Season ticket prices were released the other day. Go support the team if you're in the area. No reason not to. Super affordable tickets too. It's going to be a fun time. Jump on that train now before you have to hop on the bandwagon. James, anything else in the extra time segment to mention before we wrap things up here on the RBLR Sports Rowdy Show?
No, you covered it all. Tune into Deportes and Tampa Bay Sun programs because, as you said, we just had another Sun episode a couple weeks ago that went over a ton of stuff related to women's soccer as well as the Sun team. And now there is a little bit more this week. So I'm assuming that we will have another one very shortly here. But listeners, exactly.
I love JD used that name on Twitter. I'm taking that for myself. I love calling. I don't know why that's stuck in my head. Come on, the Sunnies. Let's go.
Come on, the Sunnies. Now, listeners, thank you for tuning in. We always appreciate when you do. Please follow us at RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, anywhere. I am mostly on Twitter. If you would like to get at me, you can use the hashtag AskRBLR, or you can get at me for at RBLR James K. What about you, Carlos?
Carlos CPA 10. My latest Twitter mission has been beefing with Universitario fans from Peru on Twitter. So come see me clown them on my Twitter. Also, that's also my Instagram. If for whatever reason you want to follow my Instagram, same thing, Carlos CPA 10. But stay on Twitter. Use hashtag AskRBLR to get involved with the show. Send us your questions. Send us comments. What are you thinking for this next game? I think the game against Pittsburgh will be fun. And I'm excited to see how it goes. It could be a trap game, like you said, but there's stuff to talk about leading up to this game. Let us know what you think. Use hashtag AskRBLR.
Exactly. And if you've made it this far, we ask you to do one more thing. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. You can get the full experience on YouTube if you'd like. But if you would prefer, we are also on the Spotify and iHeartRadio apps, Apple and Google Podcasts, wherever you are. We are to provide RBLR sports content. Now, for a great win in the bag and another one, hopefully, coming up, come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.